I do not do unboxings. I have no idea what to do with my hands. But I do have this right here. This is a cardboard box. The box is not important. What's important is what is inside the box. This is the new Steam Deck OLED. I don't know why, but I was on Valve's list of people to send one to as a review. This was supposed to be here yesterday. Thank Fedex for it not being here yesterday. As a full disclosure, this was sent to me as a review unit. I have not been paid in any way to do this. Valve has no creative control over the video. All they said is, have Steam Deck OLED, have Media Kit, talk about it. So that is what I'm going to do. This is obviously not the production packaging. Initially, these were being sent out under embargo. I got mine after the embargo though, so it is what it is. Anyway, let's open the box and pretend like I didn't open it earlier to make sure there was nothing in here that you guys shouldn't have seen. Box. Now, I'll show you the Steam Deck in a moment, but I want to talk about this thing. This is my favorite part. This, okay, focus on it. It's not going to focus on it. This is the charger. Now, the charger does come with a slightly longer cable than the original version, from 1.5 meters to 2.5 meters, but there is not a Australian version of the Steam Deck. So we have a slight problem here, okay? Now, for anyone who doesn't understand the problem, I will demonstrate it to you. Here is another power brick that has an Australian plug. Here is the plug that I have on my Steam Deck charger, okay? Do we see the problem here? This is an American charger. Now, luckily, things like this are fairly standard nowadays. I can just grab a regular phone charger with an Australian plug in it, and I'll be good to go. But, yeah, your one is not going to have this. You are going to have the charger localized to your region. So let's take the admittedly nice-looking charger that has a slightly updated logo on it and put it over here. The main show here is the Steam Deck OLED. So, what is the big deal here? Well, as the name would imply, okay? As the name would imply, this has a new screen on it. Instead of the old LCD screen, now we have a pretty OLED. I'm going to take that off without damaging it. And the model that I've been sent, this is actually annoying to get off, without damaging it at least. The model that I've been sent is the 1 terabyte model. Now, the way they're doing the distribution of the Steam Deck now is kind of interesting. They've basically revitalized the entire product stack. Basically, every single model has been moved a storage size up. Now the bottom tier model is no longer the 64 gig model, it is the 256 gig model at the exact same price of $399. That does not have the new OLED screen on it. The first one with the OLED screen is the 512 gig model for $549, and then the tier above that, the maximum tier, is the 1 terabyte model for $649. That, honestly, is just a flat upgrade with absolutely no price increase. Honestly, kind of crazy, and it's very rare to see a company actually do that. Usually, especially right now, prices are just going up and up and up. And I have a lot of respect for Valve for releasing a device like this. And here is the long-awaited reveal. Steam Deck. Now, if you've seen a Steam Deck before, you might be saying, what's different about it? And that's the thing. This is not a Steam Deck 2. This is more like a Steam Deck 1.1, or if you want to give a Counter-Strike reference, a Steam Deck 1.6. This is very much the original Steam Deck with some very minor, but very, very nice upgrades. I have not charged it yet, so let's see if it actually turns on. It looks like it's... yeah, there we go. Okay. Maybe I should have charged it beforehand. Now, besides the flickering from the camera just not knowing what to do with the screen, you might notice the screen is just a touch bigger. Instead of the old 7-inch screen, now it has a 7.4-inch screen. It is not a massive upgrade. But it is nicer to have just a touch more screen real estate. Now, I have not experienced an original Steam Deck, so I can't really say if it makes that much of a difference. However, the body of the Steam Deck is no bigger than it used to be, so it's just making better use of the space that was already there. Now, this is not the only version of the 1TB Steam Deck. There is also a limited edition version that has this, like, smoky grey shell and this, like, orange accent around everything. Sort of the same orange as this power button. I'm probably showing the demo on the screen right now, so you sort of get an idea of what it is. The only thing special about it is the custom shell. Everything else you get with the regular 1TB Steam Deck. However, if you want something that's maybe like a little bit more unique, maybe that's right up your radar. If you don't have a Steam Deck already, maybe go and, pick it up. Sadly, that version is only going to be available in the United States and Canada, so anyone else outside of those regions will have to do parcel redirection. As for the regular Steam Deck OLED, this is going to be available in all of the regular regions the Steam Deck is currently being sold in. Which means it's still not available in Australia. Valve, you sent me a Steam Deck review unit in Australia. Please work out how to sell it here. Please do that. I would really love to see that. I want to talk a bit more about the tech specs of the Steam Deck OLED, but there's something special about this case as well. This is not the regular case. Inside of this, okay, it looks like a regular case. There's also this microfiber cloth, I think. Wait, I'm going to check. Yeah, microfiber cloth. Okay, that can go over there. We don't need that. But in here, I'm going to mute the mic so you don't have to deal with this. Okay. We have a case for our case. So the liner of this big case here is removable, and you can use this as just like a standalone carrying case. Maybe if you want to like throw this in your bag or something, somewhere where you know, it's not going to get damaged. You're not really worried about like throwing the Steam Deck around. This lighter case might be, more effective. But if you're worried about like transporting it, you're worried about, someone being stupid, throwing your luggage or something, a case for your case is, in my opinion, a really nice thing to have. Now, at least when you're buying the Steam Deck, the case for your case is only available on the 1TB model, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is being sold like aftermarket as well, if you would prefer to have it. Let's get all of this junk out of the way and just talk about the Steam Deck itself. Whilst there aren't that many crazy changes to it, there are some things that are definitely worth mentioning. One of the things is the upgrade from Wi-Fi 5 to Wi-Fi 6E. Now, my marketing material here, okay, my marketing material that I don't think I can show because there might be an email on it, it says Wi-Fi 6E, 2 to 3 times faster downloads, which is, look, technically correct. But if you have a 50 megabit connection, Wi-Fi 5 was already maxing that out. Wi-Fi 6E is maxing that out as well. If we're talking more about like local data transfers, the upgrade does certainly matter. But it's not going to give you 3 times faster downloads. That's just not really how Wi-Fi works in that way. I am not saying that Wi-Fi 6E is not nice to have, but it's not going to be 2 to 3 times faster downloads for like a Steam game, for example, which for something like the Steam Deck is the majority of the stuff you're going to be downloading. One thing that will make a big difference though is now it has Bluetooth 5.3, along with an additional third antenna on the top of the device. Now, obviously, I'm not going to pull the device apart, but there is an antenna in there somewhere. This should lead to situations where, your antennas were being blocked, being far less likely, leading to disconnections of your device probably not happening. Which is good, because if you have like a controller or a keyboard attached, you generally want them to stay attached to actually be useful. Along with that, there is also a slightly bigger battery, Previously, it had a 40 megawatt hour battery. Now, it has a 50 megawatt hour battery, which is going to make a big difference, especially with the OLED screen and also the upgraded APU. Now, upgraded in terms of efficiency, not upgraded in terms of performance. We are moving from a 7nm node to a 6nm node, which should lead to far less power consumption of the APU itself. It's not going to give you any performance boost outside of the slight differences in the production of devices. Once again, this is not a Steam Deck 2, but Valve from their numbers claim an upgrade from 2 to 8 hours of battery to 3 to 12 hours. Generally, it's safe to not trust manufacturer numbers when it comes to battery life. I would go and check some third-party reviewer. I'm sure there's someone on YouTube who's already done a battery test. All of that better battery stuff is in play when you're just playing things normally, okay? But there is another thing about this OLED screen. It is also an HDR screen. So thanks to the work on GameScope by people like Joshua Ashton and a bunch of other great developers, you can now play HDR games not just on an external monitor. You can play HDR games directly on the Steam Deck. Now, this only works in the Steam Deck OS mode. If you go into the desktop mode, that is currently not going to work unless you also do things with GameScope. But like running a general application, watching a movie, things like that, that is not going to work in HDR currently. But if you open a game from the Steam client, you can actually play a game in HDR. That is wild. Like, this is a thing that is very new to Linux. Within like the past, 6 months to a year of just getting development started to actually being playable and working. Keep in mind, running HDR is going to be a lot more intensive, plus the fact that the way we're currently doing HDR is not super optimal. The kernel APIs are not the most efficient, so you're going to have a lot less battery life when you're doing so. I am unclear on the exact amount of battery loss you'll have if you do try to play in HDR, but just keep in mind, you are not going to get that full battery life if you're trying to do that. Now, I don't know what engineering magic they pulled with this. It has a bigger screen and a bigger battery, so you would logically think the device is heavier. That makes sense. No, it's not. It is 29 grams lighter, going from 669 grams, nice, to 640 grams. Now, are you going to notice 29 grams of weight loss? If I give you both devices, probably not. However, any extra weight loss you have when you're carrying a device, 3-4 hours at a time, is going to be noticeable at least a little bit over that long run, and cutting that weight without just making the device absolute garbage is nice to see. Oh yeah, another thing about the screen is it goes from having a 60Hz screen to a 90Hz screen. Keep in mind, like with HDR, if you do run it at 90Hz, it is going to give you less battery life than running it at 60. That's just how the numbers play out. But you can lower it in software if you prefer to play at 60 or you prefer to play at like 45 or 30 or whatever number you want to play at. So that's not really an issue if you really care about like getting the absolute most out of your battery life. Keep in mind, the device is not any more powerful. So if a game was like, barely playing at 45 or 50 before, setting the refresh rate to 90 isn't going to make the game run any faster. But if you're playing a game like Terraria, you're playing a game like Hades, an indie game that you can play pretty much at any frame rate you want to, now you can have a much smoother experience. Now, I should make this very clear. When I'm talking about these technical upgrades, they only apply to the Steam Deck OLED, that being the 512GB model and the 1TB model. The 256GB Steam Deck is still the LCD model. This is still the original Steam Deck. Only the OLED models get the better battery, get the better refresh rate, get the Wi-Fi 6E, and all of this fun stuff. So don't be disappointed if you buy the cheapest model and you do not have it. However, new replacement parts are going to be available from iFixit in the near future. The device is not like publicly available yet, so selling parts doesn't really make any sense. But in the near future, they are going to be available. So if maybe you have a existing Steam Deck and you possibly want some of these upgrades, you can probably buy the parts and then put them in your existing Steam Deck. It's going to be more expensive than just buying the Steam Deck from the start if you just don't have one. But if you possibly want to have a bit of fun doing a bit of hardware upgrading, that is there for you. Now, there are some very minor changes that you probably wouldn't notice. Things like the shape of the top of the analog sticks and the material used on the top has been adjusted to make them a bit grippier and fight against build-up dust. Personally, as I said earlier, I've not used an original Steam Deck. I think the sticks are fine. I don't have really any problem with them whatsoever. I honestly think like the general layout of the Steam Deck is perfectly fine as well. Now, it doesn't fit me perfectly. I am the kind of person who likes to use a single finger to hit like both the top and the bottom, like the trigger and the other one, whatever term you want to be using. So for me, like having to hold it like this is the way you're sort of intended to hold it. Holding it like this, the way I'd prefer to hold it, does feel a little bit off to me. The buttons on the back as well, the buttons on the back are still here. The buttons on the back, I feel, are like a little bit too tough to press. I've never been much of like a back button person anyway, so I probably wouldn't end up actually using them. But as for like the face buttons and the D-pad, I don't really have any problem with them whatsoever. When I'm looking at like a controller, my baseline is the PS5 controller. Honestly, I think this thing is one of the best controllers ever made. This fits my hand absolutely perfectly. I love it. I can hold it like this. I can hold it like this. No problem whatsoever. One thing I kind of do have an issue with the Steam Deck is the sides here don't really have any sort of grippiness whatsoever. It's not explicit with the PS5 controller, but it does have this like rough material that makes it really easy to hold onto the controller. I find, at least from the little bit that I've been using it, that my hands do slip just a touch. Maybe that's something of just like a matter of getting used to holding it. But at least my initial impressions, that's something I would like to see change. As for like the feel of the trackpads, they feel fine. Like, I haven't really used them like in the interface, so how they actually feel to use there, like, I can't really say right now. But as for like the material on top, they feel fine. Holding this alongside the PS5 controller, I do have to say I do prefer the tops of the sticks there. Like, they're not bad on the Steam Deck, but if you were to ask me which one I think is better overall, I think the PS5 controller does it just a touch better, but I don't know what you could do to the Steam Deck without just taking these sticks and putting them on here, which I wouldn't be opposed to. I'm going to do a proper video of using the Steam Deck for a while and just getting a feel for actually using it in games before I can give you like my proper opinions there, but that's just sort of my first impressions of it. Now, the big question is, should you buy a Steam Deck OLED? That depends on who you are. If you have a Steam Deck, it's a very minor upgrade, right? It's a very, very minor upgrade. If you maybe want to get a second Steam Deck, if your Steam Deck is broken and you want to replace it, this is just a flat upgrade over the old Steam Deck. It is cheaper to buy a version with more storage. If you want to buy one, I wouldn't tell you not to, but it's hard for me to recommend it. Now, if you don't have a Steam Deck and maybe you were considering buying one, as I said, this is a flat upgrade over the older model. The 256GB model is $150 cheaper, the 512GB model is $100 cheaper, and the 1TB model didn't even exist before. That's a really compelling argument if you're already considering doing so. If you wanted to get a Steam Deck, right now is the best time to do so. until a Steam Deck 2 comes out and probably they lower the prices again. But until that happens, right now with what we know exists, this is the best time to buy one. Now, in a couple of days, I'm going to do a live stream on this channel about the Steam Deck, so if maybe you have some questions about it, things you want to like test out before you buy it, questions about how it feels to play games, things like that, feel free to ask me then, but until then, that's pretty much it for me. This is a really weird angle to record videos at, and I don't know if I'm ever going to use it again, but maybe I will. Let me know how you feel about it. Anyway, that is going to be it for me. So if you liked the video, go and like the video. If you have any questions about Steam Deck, leave them down below, and I might be able to answer them. We'll have to see about that. If you really liked the video, and you want to become one of these amazing people over that way, yeah, they're over that way today, check out the Patreon subscribes, the LiberaPay link in the description down below. That is going to be it for me, and, I don't know how to end the video now. Bye.